It is December 1922. Vladimir Ilyich Lenin is 52 years old.
Right.
He is in his apartment in the Kremlin, recovering from the first stroke that struck him back in May. I mean, he cannot walk far. He suffers from headaches, from insomnia, from the terrifying knowledge that another stroke could come at any moment, and he is dictating.
Yeah, he dictates to his secretaries, notes, letters, memoranda.
He is racing against time, because during his months of convalescence, well, something has changed in the party he built. The apparatus has grown. A man named Stalin, whom Lenin agreed to appoint as general secretary in April, has been using the post to build a machine.
The old comrades, Zinoviev, Kamenev, Stalin, are meeting without him, deciding without him, forming a bloc without him.
Exactly. Lenin can feel the ground shifting beneath his feet, and he is preparing to fight. This is In Defense of October, Episode 7, Lenin's Last Struggle and the Founding of the Left Opposition, Part 1, The Testament.
The question this episode will answer is this: did the degeneration of the Soviet state proceed without opposition? What was the political content of Lenin's final battle, and how did Trotsky carry it forward after Lenin's death? I'm host B.
And I'm host A.
We are not taking sides here. We are not endorsing the viewpoints of any political faction. We are examining the historical events and ideas as they are presented in the source material.
So put yourself right there in the Kremlin in December 1922. Lenin has been the undisputed leader of the Russian Revolution for 5 years, but now his physical body is failing him. He is about to launch his last great political battle against the bureaucracy, against great Russian chauvinism, and, well, against Stalin personally.
Which is a massive escalation.
It really is. And to understand it, you have to look at the General Secretary post, because when you hear a title like General Secretary today, it sounds like a boring administrative job. You picture someone pushing paper. Why was it so dangerous?
Well, the post was created in April 1922, just as a technical functionary role. They needed someone to manage the overwhelming administrative workload. But Stalin systematically turned it into a political machine.
Right, by controlling assignments and local appointments. And then there is the formalization of material privileges in August 1922. They established a hierarchy of 6 ranks for party officials.
Yeah, which really solidified the bureaucracy as a distinct social layer. A bureaucracy defending its own newfound privileges just behaves fundamentally differently than a revolutionary vanguard.
Absolutely. And, Lenin was not present to witness this consolidation. In May 1922, he suffered his first severe stroke. The first rumors of his illness were only whispered.
The first rumors of Lenin's illness were only whispered. It seemed that no one thought that Lenin could ever be taken ill. Many knew that he watched intently over the health of others, but it seemed that he himself was immune to disease. When Lenin's sudden turn of health became known more widely, it was like a shift in the revolution itself. Was it possible that Lenin could fall ill and die, like anyone else? The sudden realization of his mortality shook the entire foundation of the Soviet state.
Driven by sheer willpower, he recovers enough to return in October 1922. And he immediately senses the almost imperceptible threads of a conspiracy. He zeroes in on the monopoly on foreign trade.
Right, because the Central Committee, led by Sokolnikov, Bukharin, and Stalin, voted in October to weaken that monopoly,
which threatened the vital firewall protecting the workers' state against world capital. Lenin senses the danger and reaches out to Leon Trotsky to coordinate a defense.
I consider that we have quite reached agreement. I ask you to declare our solidarity at the plenum. This brief message formed the foundation of their joint counterattack.
And the counterattack totally works. They present a united front, and the Central Committee backs down and reverses its decision.
It looks as though it has been possible to take the position without a single shot by a simple maneuver. I suggest that we should not stop and should continue the offensive. This first successful joint bloc proved they could still outmaneuver the growing faction arrayed against them.
But the reaction from Stalin is immediate, and it is violent. On December 22, he telephones Nadezhda Krupskaya and unleashes a torrent of abuse on her for allowing Lenin to dictate.
Oh, wow. He was actively threatening Lenin's wife.
Yeah, completely ruthless. And this aggression spills directly into the second major battle, the national question in Georgia. Stalin was pushing this autonomization plan to absorb non-Russian republics into the Russian Federation.
Basically a direct move to reestablish great Russian dominance.
Right. And Stalin sends his ally Ordzhonikidze to Tbilisi to force compliance. It gets so heated that Ordzhonikidze physically strikes a Georgian Bolshevik. When Lenin hears about this violence, he is furious.
It is quite natural that in such circumstances the freedom to secede from the Union will be a mere scrap of paper, unable to defend the non-Russians from the onslaught of that really Russian man, the great Russian chauvinist, in substance a rascal and a tyrant, such as the typical Russian bureaucrat is. The political responsibility for all this truly great Russian nationalist campaign must of course be laid on Stalin and Dzerzhinsky. Lenin is explicitly calling Stalin a vulgar nationalist socialist and a bully.
So the lines are drawn. In early December 1922, Lenin calls Trotsky to his room. He proposes a joint commission to fight Soviet bureaucratism.
Lenin reflected and then said, "That is, I propose a struggle with Soviet bureaucratism, and you're proposing to include the bureaucratism of the organization bureau of the party. I suppose that's it," Trotsky replied. Then Vladimir Ilyich said, "Very well then, I propose a bloc." And I said, "It is a pleasure to form a bloc with a good man." This alliance was a concrete plan to systematically dismantle Stalin's control over the party apparatus.
Which brings us directly to the documents known as Lenin's Testament. He dictates these notes between December 23, 1922 and January 4, 1923. He is deliberately exposing the political tendencies representing social forces within the party leadership.
Comrade Stalin, having become Secretary General, has unlimited authority concentrated in his hands, and I'm not sure whether he will always be capable of using that authority with sufficient caution. Comrade Trotsky, on the other hand, as his struggle against the CC on the question of the People's Commissariat of Communications has already proved, is distinguished not only by outstanding ability. He is personally perhaps the most capable man in the present CC, but he has displayed excessive self-assurance and shown excessive preoccupation with the purely administrative side of the work. These two qualities of the two outstanding leaders of the present CC can inadvertently lead to a split, and if our party does not take steps to avert this, the split may come unexpectedly.
And he does not stop there. He notes that the capitulation of Zinoviev and Kamenev in October 1917 was not an accident.
Right, and he calls Bukharin not a Marxist but a scholastic. These precise political warnings map the exact fault lines that would soon fracture the Soviet state.
He is basically cataloging the critical vulnerabilities of the men holding the fate of the state. And then on January 4th, 1923, he adds a postscript.
Stalin is too rude, and this defect, although quite tolerable in our midst and in dealing among us communists, becomes intolerable in a Secretary General. That is why I suggest that the comrades think about a way of removing Stalin from that post and appointing another man in his stead, who in all other respects differs from Comrade Stalin in having only one advantage, namely that of being more tolerant, more loyal, more polite, and more considerate to the comrades, less capricious, etc. This was an unambiguous, documented call to completely remove Stalin from power.
Lenin moves into open warfare. He attacks Stalin's bureaucratic empire through his final articles, like Better Fewer, but Better, and his critique of Rabkin, the workers' and peasants' inspection.
Rabkin was supposed to eliminate bureaucracy, but under Stalin it became the ultimate bureaucratic weapon.
Exactly, and the Politburo is so terrified by this public assault that they actively attempt to suppress the articles. They actually propose printing a dummy single-copy edition of Pravda just for Lenin.
I mean, they were fully prepared to manufacture a fake reality for the founder of the state just to pacify him.
It is wild. And then we reach the climax on March 5, 1923. Lenin finally learns the details of Stalin's abusive phone call to Krupskaya.
"You have been so rude as to summon my wife to the telephone and use bad language. Although she had told you that she was prepared to forget this, the fact nevertheless became known through her to Zinoviev and Kamenev. I have no intention of forgetting so easily what has been done against me, and it goes without saying that what has been done against my wife I consider having been done against me as well. I ask you, therefore, to think it over whether you are prepared to withdraw what you have said and to make your apologies, or whether you prefer that relations between us should be broken off." Lenin formally and permanently severed all personal ties with Stalin.
And he immediately delegates the defense of the Georgian case to Trotsky.
"Dear Comrade Trotsky, it is my earnest request that you should undertake the defense of the Georgian case in the party CC. This case is now under persecution by Stalin and Dzerzhinsky, and I cannot rely on their impartiality. Quite to the contrary, I would feel at ease if you agreed to undertake its defense. If you should refuse to do so for any reason, return the whole case to me. I shall consider it a sign that you do not accept." Lenin transferred the operational leadership of this critical battle directly into Trotsky's hands.
Lenin's secretary, Furieva, then tells Trotsky that Lenin is preparing a bomb for Stalin at the upcoming Congress.
A political explosive designed to destroy the bureaucratic machine once and for all.
But then, the final blow. On March 9th, 1923, Lenin suffers his third stroke, silencing him forever.
The historical record demands a careful, deliberate analysis of these final days. The fight between Stalin and Trotsky was not a personal rivalry for power. It was a political expression of the class struggle within the Soviet state.
Right, pitting two completely different social layers against each other.
Exactly. On one side stood the rising bureaucratic stratum, personified by Stalin. On the other side stood the internationalist proletarian wing, represented by Trotsky. Every active political intervention Lenin made in his final months aligned him completely with Trotsky.
Which makes the aftermath so devastating.
Yeah, the systematic suppression of the Testament and the block by the Stalinist faction after Lenin's death effectively blinded the party rank and file, hiding his warnings from the very workers who built the state.
So we are left with this image of Lenin silenced, his bomb undelivered, while the 12th Congress meets under the control of the apparatus. Lenin's bomb was never delivered. The German October of 1923, a revolutionary situation of, in Trotsky's words, world historic importance was missed. And from his desk in Moscow, Trotsky wrote the letter that would found the left opposition. The struggle continues. Next time on In Defense of October. Episode 7, Lenin's Last Struggle, Part 2. The bomb that never exploded, the defeat of the German October of 1923, the rise of the triumvirate of Stalin, Zinoviev, and Kamenev, and Trotsky's October 8 letter that launched the left opposition into open struggle,